I just want to take a moment and talk about why we want to do this. The idea of having people share their personal struggles is because in our business, I get to speak to people that have various health conditions on the day-to-day. And often, the common theme amongst these people are that they feel isolated and they feel alone in their condition. And to me, being on the receiving end of it, I think to myself, I've just spoken to 3 people that have the same condition as you do today. So I'm hoping that through having these conversations with people and them sharing their personal struggles, we can empower those with hope, with guidance, and even speak about some of the pitfalls that they might face down the line. That's why we do it. I had to Google, can stress lead to seizures?
One minute you're here, the next you're just somewhere else. The in-between doesn't exist.
It's like a blackout.
Like a total blackout.
The second thing I Googled was, can seizures kill you?
This was something I didn't understand.
Like, just because you're working as hard as you possibly can doesn't mean you're going to get success.
Bantu education taught black people not to dream.
It's a stark reality that you have limits.
The Billionaire Boys Club. Wake up at 4 a.m., rise and grind.
Everyone has gotten to success in a different way.
But I think the really defining moment for me was waking up in my mother's arms.
Cam, how you doing? Thanks for being here today, have this conversation.
It's an honor, man. Thank you so much for having me do this with you.
Yeah, I'm actually super excited.
Same here.
So why don't we kick it off and you tell me what is wrong with you?
What is wrong with me? That's a very big question. My pathological desire for success led me to have 6 seizures, the last one almost taking my life.
When you told me about these 6 seizures, first I had to Google, can stress lead to seizures? Now, at no point was I doubting what you were saying, but I was trying to understand how this could have happened, right? Because I thought it was unbelievable that workplace stress can do that. The second thing I Googled was, can seizures kill you? And what I found was insane, that stress, which then leads to reoccurring seizures, and seizures can result in not enough oxygen coming to your brain, and that is what kills you. Or the obvious one, you falling over and you suffocating because of the seizure itself.
100%.
But talk to me about what happened there. Like, I mean, it's incredible.
I was just as much in shock as you are.
Yeah.
This was something I didn't understand from many angles. I didn't understand what it was. I didn't understand why it was happening to me. A seizure is something that happened to other people, not me. And I think what was the scariest part, or 2 of the scariest parts, number 1 was my total lack of awareness of it happening. My description was essentially, it's like a scene change in a movie. 1 minute you're here, the next you're just somewhere else. The in-between doesn't exist.
It's like a blackout.
Like a total blackout. The second thing was when I was told a seizure is technically undiagnosable. You cannot say a seizure is due to this. You had the seizure for this reason. It could be a multitude of different things that could have led up to the seizure. So I think that was very humbling for me. But the positive is it led me to perform a complete overhaul on my life and my habits.
Like a reevaluation, a recheck.
Complete reevaluation and restructuring of absolutely every single thing in my life. It forced me to face my demons. My life was literally depending on it at this stage. I had to then eliminate any potential risk that could have been the causal link for these now recurring seizures, which were getting progressively worse.
Something that came out to me when you, I think we share a common theme here with work and drive to success and all those themes, but the fact that eventually one does have a breaking point. So you have this illusion of control that you can do everything and be all, but when something like this happens to your body is it's a stark reality that you have limits, and when you push those limits, something like this happens. It's very clear that this isn't the way forward.
100%.
But then talk to me about this drive, this pathological drive, the way you said it. Where does that come from?
So where it comes from, number one, I have been lucky enough to have parents who have inspired me very greatly. My parents obviously lived through the apartheid era.
Mm-hmm.
My mother used to talk to me a lot about Bantu education, but the one thing that really resonated with me is when she said, Bantu education taught black people not to dream. My one and sole mandate as a mother was to teach my kids to dream, to show you that the sky isn't actually the limit. There's still space way beyond the sky. There's the stars, there's the moon. There are other solar systems and galaxies. And, once I had been exposed to exactly what a human being is capable of achieving, you see success at different scales. And, of course, success when you're young is monetary predominantly.
Materialistic.
You see very materialistic until you mature and you realize it encompasses a whole host of other factors. But once I had seen that, for me, it had become a matter of there is no question that I should be able to get there and have that feeling of what I understood to be happiness at the time.
Right.
I saw no reason why somebody else could do it and not myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where the seed was planted.
So for those that don't know, what is Bantu education?
Bantu education was essentially an education system that existed in apartheid, which was basically, this is as my parents had put it, it had been structured in such a way where a black person was taught how to serve a white person.
Yeah. Well, I think it's quite inspiring that she saw beyond that, that she wasn't a victim of circumstance, that she could create her own, that she saw the bigger picture. Yeah.
Of course.
And that's awesome because she instilled that with you.
Yeah.
And I think it's an amazing story. So that's where it starts for you. Your parents instilling this capability.
100%.
That you're capable. But that alone in itself isn't usually the cause and effect for why you want to be successful. So where does the drive come from? Because pathological drive is something very different.
If I think about my childhood journey, I guess there are a lot of things that inspired me to want to, I don't want to say win, but to just better myself.
Yeah.
I was a very, very, very shy kid, extremely shy to the point where I would sit in the car when our family would go to visit other friends because I didn't want to meet new people.
Mm.
Of course, in school, when you're the shy kid, you're the kid that's, picked on or you're seen as weak or weird because you don't want to do things other kids are doing. This extended to high school. I didn't want to go out clubbing at night. I wanted to sit playing my PlayStation. I wanted to chill with my sister and my mom, which wasn't seen as cool. And so I think I let, as any young person would, the comments of, my peers get to me of, this isn't normal. We are better than you because we are able to socialize and have these kinds of interactions and you aren't. I looked at myself as incapable of relating to people because I wasn't doing what my peers were doing at that age. It just made me angrier and angrier. I wanted more for myself. And I think I translated that to what can I do to normalize myself, my circumstances, my situation. And I had learned that, where ultimately we're trying to get to is this place, having the house, having the cars, ultimately having people praise you for everything that you've achieved. Of course, it's a very unhealthy outlook on what should drive a person, but it's what I had at the time. It's definitely not what I was taught, but as a kid, you're not just influenced by your parents, you're influenced by television. Social media wasn't really a thing when I was in middle school or high school, but external factors. So
that last part you said, how people view you and how they praise you, how much of that was related to the need to be seen as significant?
I would say when I was young, 100%. 100% was just about proving people wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Because I want you to be wrong. I want to see your face
Yeah.
when I do get the car or I get the girl or whatever it was.
Yeah.
It was 100%, if I'm being completely honest.
So what's very important is what you said earlier is you spoke about how success, what it meant to you back then, is very different to what is meant to you right now. So then let's talk about this drive for success, because people obviously don't know you the way I know you. I know you when you were chasing your second degree, and then afterwards that wasn't enough for you. You had to get another MBA on top of that. You clearly had a very, very big goals for yourself. Did you know, were they specific goals, or you just knew a place you wanted to be at? Like, how did you define success?
My goals were not specific. The reason why I think I did so much academically was because I just wanted to accumulate more and more. Again, so that I had something to show for myself.
Okay.
I think when it came to my academics, it was also about proving a point to myself as well, to prove that I'm capable of getting there. I can do something as rudimentary as achieving a degree and then doing it again and then going to business school and excelling there. I could then go out and say to a prospective employer, you know what, I've done this 3 times, as opposed to someone you're considering who's done this once.
Yeah.
And being able to top trump anybody who had anything to say about whether it was academics or whether it was career success, how quickly you reached a certain goal. But I think that definitely ended up changing, post-seizure, which we'll get into. But leading up to that, I think because my drivers were quite unhealthy in my perspective, I would have just never achieved the fulfillment or gone about it in a very sane manner for myself.
Or healthy way.
Exactly.
So then you now leave university. You still have this unhealthy obsession with success.
Absolutely.
And what it means to you. It's interesting, the relationship that we create with things. If it's your relationship to food, your relationship to health, your relationship to success, these are all relationships that you're creating and you're constantly feeding. And if you're feeding it with unhealthy ideas or ideals, then even when you reach this measure of success, it's been tainted because it's not really what you really wanted. So then you start work, and now you're in the workplace for the first time, and you got to prove the naysayers wrong. So talk to me about that start, what that was like for you.
So I started work at a very big asset manager. I was a graduate trainee at the time. I remember at the time, my goal was just to be the biggest nuisance in the office as possible. Not in the literal sense, but in the sense that I'm going to go to everybody's desk, chat to everybody, build relationships. And this is something I used to do in school as well. Or let me say in university, I kind of developed this skill. It's just getting to know everybody, creating alliances, I guess, within your environment, making sure you know where everybody is. If you need anything from somebody, you know that there is a person for that.
Yeah.
And I guess that hasn't really ended in my life today. But that's what I would do in the office, and it didn't end at the CEO. I went to the CEO's office one day. A very intelligent man, very straight, very stern individual, who's had a similar kind of outlook to success as I had, and I mentioned to him, I want to sit in your seat.
Yeah. It's quite
what
bold.
do I need to do?
Quite bold for a graduate to walk into.
Yeah. He was very taken back by that, as anyone would be. But he then enabled a scenario where I was able to work with the top execs in the organization, and as a result of that, I was exposed to a lot more than your average analyst was. That was sitting, waiting for an opportunity to land in their lap.
Yeah.
I would ask questions, I would probe, I would pretty much learn the ways of these people, but I'm in a money-driven industry at the end of the day. It's very greed-based. So I think that in itself also fed into my perception of success of, okay, more money, more revenue, higher AUM, more inflow at a quicker rate, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That was my main driver because that's what we were incentivized to do. And I think, again, that perpetuated my outlook on what I wanted to achieve and what I needed to achieve. It was more money. It was more stuff. Interacting with clients who had the stuff. They had the yachts. They had anything you could ever dream of. And this was my exposure on a 12-hour, sometimes more basis a day.
Or you're being confronted now with what you thought you wanted, or what you think you want. Because now you're meeting people that have what you think you want. Yeah? Because that's interesting.
Yeah.
Right? It's not often that you are confronted with, not even confronted, but you are now sitting in front of the life that you are currently working towards. So how did that look for you? Were you excited about the notion? Is that what you really wanted?
I worked myself basically to having these seizures, and that forced me to reevaluate all of my fundamentals. And this happened right before COVID, so the timing couldn't have been more perfect because now I was starting to gain the tools to be able to think more clearly. I was sleeping 8 hours at night.
Yeah.
I was having breakfast. I saw my house in daylight. I wasn't leaving in the dark of the morning and coming back in the dark of the eve, where I only saw daylight hit my house in the weekends. I was just given that clarity in a time when all we could do was sit and self-reflect. And during that time, I also learned how to meditate.
Okay.
It took me about 4 months to properly learn how to switch my very, very overactive mind off. And that was when the journey started. I wouldn't say I'm there.
Yeah.
But I've definitely made a lot more progress to the point where it's almost a complete 180 to where I was.
So then, how about you run me through your life at this as a manager? What did it look like, so we can understand why a seizure would come about? Because I think that's probably interesting for someone to hear.
Okay, I was very inspired by this whole notion of being a part of the 4 a.m. club, the Billionaire Boys Club. You wake up at 4 a.m., rise and grind. If you want to be a billionaire, this is what it takes. I would wake up, I kid you not, at 3:30 in the morning. I was at gym at 4, out of the gym at 6, in the office 6:30, and that felt good to me because I just felt I'm doing what I need to do to get where I want to go.
You're doing what someone else isn't doing, therefore you must
exactly
get further.
And therefore I'm going to get where other people don't get to.
Yes,
because I'm doing what other people won't do. That was my perception, of course. I would work staring at a laptop, staring at spreadsheets all day, caffeinating. I cannot tell you how much coffee I was consuming in my young professional life, at least. And you wouldn't believe this is a low number for someone in this industry, but probably 12 to 14 cups of coffee a day.
That's insane.
Yeah. And that would continue up until the dead of night. I would drive home, wouldn't see my mother, wouldn't eat dinner, go to bed, sleep a couple of hours, 4 hours, and then I was back at it. And that was the cycle for 3 years.
Do you know what's crazy? I recently heard that if you drink 400 milligrams of caffeine, something around there, it's the equivalent of having a low dose of amphetamines. Now, 400 milligrams of coffee is like 4 cups of coffee, right? And if you talk about big mugs, then it's 2 of them.
Yeah.
So if you're having 12, that's pushing it, especially for your heart. If you think about that for a second. But you have the first seizure, yeah?
Yeah.
Why don't you calm down there? Like, surely having a first seizure must be also like a rude awakening.
Because I was completely ignoring my body.
You didn't get
the notion of a physical element stopping me from where I need to go was completely ridiculous.
Okay.
I just needed my body to just shape up and just live up to what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
And this was subconscious for me. I didn't feel the effects of what I was doing. I didn't feel tired. I didn't feel, or at least maybe I wasn't allowing myself to be conscious of it. The first seizure it happened, it's done. I'm back. Now we
Feeling
work at
good?
it again.
Okay.
Feeling good. We go to gym, push the body. And again, it was the same with gym. I would gym for 2 hours. At gym, I was the same. I wanted to gym longer than anybody else. I wanted to push heavier than anybody else. It didn't stop. So I was ignoring the signs. The signs were there. As you say, the seizure happened. But I was completely ignoring the signs. It's not something I acknowledged until I was able to really sit and reflect when I had the time to do so, or when I allowed myself the time to do so.
So how was the sixth seizure different from the first, second, third, fourth, or fifth? How is that the one that then, I mean, like eventually at some point you're like, this guy does not care. He's willing to go.
I remember that one. When I woke up, firstly, I felt majorly disoriented, as I do with every other one.
Yeah.
I had this extreme sense of vertigo, and for weeks afterwards, I just felt as if I was living in a dream, kind of like having this out-of-body experience, something I can't really describe.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the really defining moment for me was waking up in my mother's arms, seeing her complete distress, and she was in tears. And I think that's when I realized I'm not just doing this to myself, I'm doing this to her and my loved ones as well. I don't want to see my mother in this state again. I don't want to see her in that much distress with tears in her eyes, especially knowing that I'm essentially the cause of that distress. I just felt something has to change. Clearly something is wrong. When the strongest person I know is in a state of, I don't want to say weakness, but vulnerability, so to speak, that's like an alarm bell going off for me. And of course, like any man, it's not nice to see your mom cry. My dad wasn't living with us at the time, and again, as I mentioned, it's like a scene change. He's standing over me. So obviously it was occurring for a very long time for, my mother to be able to phone him, for him to stop what he's doing, get in his car, drive, get to the point where he's in the house standing over me, and for that to be the moment where I regain consciousness. That also played in my head quite a bit, that this one must have gone on for a while, and maybe afterwards I passed out and I was unconscious. I don't know. I didn't ask questions about it. I'm too scared to. But those were definitely the factors that made me realize, okay, this is definitely getting bad.
So what I want to talk about now is some of these success gurus, even people of authority who actually have achieved a wild amount of success. We talk about working all the time, and I think about Elon Musk when he speaks about, he works 7 days a week and he doesn't sleep. All he does is work. He lives in his factory, and people associate that with, that's the only way that you have to live if you want to be a huge amount of success. And then you hear Richard Branson speak, and he only sleeps 4 hours a day because, he doesn't need to sleep more than that, apparently, according to him. And then you hear Jeff Bezos speak. Anyone that has achieved massive success, according to them, they have never done anything else but work. Then Bill Gates has a story about how he spent 2 years just living, and he used to sleep under his desk at Microsoft because he didn't want to go home, because he didn't want to miss the opportunity of launching Microsoft. And like, this is the stuff that's in the back of your head when you're trying to make a success of yourself. You're like, well, this is what I need to do. This is but in your opinion, do you think that's true? Do you think it's genuinely true that they can go 365 at that pace?
No, I don't think that's true.
I can't imagine that's true. Humans aren't capable of something.
I don't think the body's physically capable of doing something like that. I think one thing, a conversation that I had with a friend, is that you really have to teach yourself to be super, super objective and to think for yourself in these situations. It's so easy to listen to these stories, and you excitingly go and tell a friend about it. I come to you and say, Marco, did you know that Bill Gates, used to sleep under his desk, etc., etc. But you need to objectively have the ability to tell yourself, okay, these people, number one, they took advantage of opportunities that didn't exist in the time that they were taking advantage of them. Mm-hmm. A lot of that was, an element of luck. Yeah. I do not for a second believe any of those people knew what they were doing at the time or knew what they were capable of. Yeah. There was an opportunity. They were at the right place at the right time. And they have sold this story, but it's part of the story. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, sorry, I was going to interrupt you, but
Yeah.
what you're saying is right. I have heard there was a guy who interviews a lot of billionaires, and he said a common theme amongst them was anyone that became a billionaire, they all mention an element of luck.
Yes,
I think to become that, an element of luck has to exist.
most definitely.
And I think the important part that you said is oftentimes the way that they describe their story, it's also part of the narrative that they want to project because it's part of the story of the business and their brand. And I think also, and this is also an important part that I heard a psychologist talk about, and he said that often when people try to remember their success, they obviously paint themselves as the hero. That's how they remember it. They remember themselves. They're the reason they're successful, not the environment. They can't be objective. And I think
100%.
in them repainting like an autobiography when you read it, and they think back, they don't remember all of the details of what went wrong and
100%. 100%.
like you having these 6 seizures, like you don't remember all of those. You remember the last one, maybe.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
if you think about yourself when you're 80, but you don't remember all of them and how you got there and the
Most
sleepless
definitely.
nights.
Exactly. And one thing I often think about is imagine you challenged every billionaire in the world to today,
Yeah.
the 3rd of April, 2024. I want you to take away all of your success, all of your businesses,
Yeah.
basically getting yourself back to ground zero where you started and do it again. How many do you think will be able to do that again? Because they all lead you to believe that it's because of the person that they are
Yeah.
and nothing else.
Nothing else. Yeah.
And that's the question I always ask myself. Am I really going to listen to these billionaires or these successful people that we praise as if they're some type of gods?
Yeah.
I will never replicate their success. I can sleep under my desk. I can do whatever it is that they tell you to do, but I will never replicate their success. I think the scary fact that people don't like to come to terms with is there is no rule book.
Yeah.
There is no game plan.
Very true.
And you are not guaranteed success, and not all of you, I'm sorry to say this, are going to achieve it. That is just how life works.
That is crazy. A more truer statement cannot be said. It does not get discussed enough. When we were starting with our business, and this is like the 7th business that we've started so many before this, but this was the one that we really committed to the most out of all of them.
Yeah.
And I remember it failing for like a year, and we couldn't get anything right. No one's buying, and we're trying everything we possibly can. We're learning the mistakes, I guess.
Yeah.
And now I'm on the internet trying to find some inspiration, and I hear Will Smith talk about you can't have a backup plan. He only has the A plan. That's the one he commits to, because you can't have success unless you only have one plan you devote all your time and attention to. And everyone's like commitment. Don't give up. If you give up, then you won't succeed. If you quit, you won't succeed. But then I'm thinking, so then just by chance, I heard a guy say that sometimes a quick death is more important than a long extended death. 100%. And then I thought, okay, all right, let me have a look. So these guys, all of these guys that I'm listening to that are telling me never quit and take one idea and always hold on to one idea, I looked at their history of businesses they started. They started how many businesses before they picked this one? Meaning those all died before they got to this one that was successful.
Yes.
But here they're preaching, this is the one, never change, never veer, never pivot. And I'm like, it's all bullshit.
Exactly.
It's all bullshit.
And that was your aha moment.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Yeah. And it's quite interesting because I read a book, or I'm reading a book currently, The Daily Stoic.
Yeah.
One of the principles I read a few days ago was that of, you being able to question what governs your God.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into religion, but I think the basic premise is these people that we praise,
Yeah.
what governs them? What principles do they follow? What makes them the defining factor for how I'm going to shape my life?
Yeah.
And you need to be able to think objectively, as you had in that moment where you were like, what, this is total bullshit.
Yeah.
And it's exactly that. When you say, when you reiterate Will Smith's statement of you have to focus on one thing, I'm not saying I'm successful where I want to be by any means, but I do the complete opposite. I'm all about having a backup plan. One of the greatest pieces of advice one of my mentors gave me was to make sure that if something fails, you've got something to fall back on.
Yeah.
That has saved my butt in so many scenarios.
Well, if you think about it from a finance perspective, they talk about diversification. Yeah?
Exactly.
So you can find a principle, a quote, a thought leader that verifies whatever opinion you want. And that's a difficult part about success.
Yeah.
Because everyone has gotten to success in a different way.
Exactly.
And you got to find out what it is for you specifically.
100%.
And that's I think that's what's difficult. It's trying to synthesize this network of information to what works for you.
Exactly. And I think that's what people don't, and this is my opinion, I think that this is what people don't like to accept. It is the fact that you have to do that work, that your thought leader is bound to make mistakes and can be wrong.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when you're a child and you see your parents as these figures who just don't do anything wrong, and they're the ultimate pillars of how to do things and how to move and, you know, how to talk to people or anything that you do in your life. So you get guidance from them. You start to realize that these are people that can be wrong. They sometimes can make a call which wasn't the right decision.
Yeah.
And I think that's how we have to view these thought leaders and figureheads as well. And, you know, as I'm chatting to you, I'm actually figuring out, the gears are turning in my head. And I think that's what's driving my pathological desire for success. It is the acceptance of that fact that we are, in fact, not all going to achieve our goals. And not all of us are going to get what we want out of life. That's just how it is. Life owes you nothing.
Yeah.
You can listen to as many inspirational talks or podcasts or whatever it is that you want to. And I refuse to be a part of the people who do not reach their goals. And I think that's the reason I am the way I am. I don't think that me being this way guarantees me reaching my goals, but I'm certainly not going to stop trying.
Yeah. And I do believe. I think if you never stop trying, you can never lose.
Exactly.
It's only when you genuinely stop trying. Like starting a new business, letting one die, it doesn't mean you stop trying.
Yeah.
For me, when I learned about probability, I quickly realized that, like you mentioned, not even you can work your whole life at trying to be successful doesn't mean you will be. But what we can do is try and maximize the probability of success. So if we can figure out how to do that, and that's, for example, by maybe studying this, diversifying like this, multiple income streams, listening to people that have done it, and taking out what works for you. Like if you can just do all of these things individually, you can maximize it. Doesn't mean you will achieve it, but behind every principle is a promise, and the principles that you're learning, you know, they can at least promise you the likelihood of it might occur.
Exactly. Totally agree.
Something that's been catching my attention recently is how knowledge and wisdom can be fluid. And what I mean by that is that your lens through which you view that wisdom through can change what it means to you. So when you read a book and it tells you something that stands out to you when you're a child, and then you reread that book when you're an adult, and then you reread that book when maybe you are successful now. Every time you read it, it means something different to you. And that has been reshaping my way that I view knowledge and wisdom and principles that I've been clinging to for my success.
Sure.
What is currently on your mind regarding success? Like, what is currently shaping your thoughts?
I think I'm in that phase of trying to rediscover what success truly means to me. I think the basic overarching umbrella statement I have for myself is, and again it's a cliche, but I just want to reach the ultimate sense of contentment for myself. I want to wake up and feel happy. I mentioned this morning was a morning where I felt particularly happy. I woke up, I turned on my music, I started dancing, I went into the shower, the door open, was dancing in the shower, didn't sing. And that was a moment that lasted 20 minutes. And for me, it's about maximizing on those moments. How do I have more of that? What caused that? Why didn't I have that yesterday?
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that's what life is. We're all trying to figure that out for ourselves. Yeah. And I think we both studied accounting. Do you remember we always used to say, the more you know, the less you know?
Yeah, it's very true.
I think it's the same with success. The more you start to understand about yourself, the more you realize you really don't understand enough what success truly entails. And I think that that's the beauty of life. It's just this pursuit of figuring that out, amongst other things.
Yeah, I can hear you saying. And I think my takeaway from that conversation is, or that point, is that you woke up and you had a successful morning.
Exactly.
And try having more successful mornings. The success it's a moving target, really.
It is.
You can't hold on to it, grasp it. If you ask anyone that has like a material goal, they give you a number. I want to make X. This was often how it started for me. And if those people that reach that goal, they get there, there's no difference in how they feel. They've just now moved the goalpost down the line. I realized this very quickly when I plotted out my career trajectory or my call about my net worth goals, and you start reaching them. Every time you reach them, you feel just as empty as you did with the previous one. And you're like, okay, well, look, I mean, fair enough. That's not as much. When I reach this one,
yeah,
I'm gonna nail it. And then you reach that one, you're like, wow,
for sure,
nothing. Honestly, I'm no different. I'm still just as empty or just as unhappy. And you think about, okay, well, if I get this thing, if I do this thing, if I do that thing, I'm like, nothing makes you happy. Nothing. And for me, it was a bit of an identity crisis because I gave up a lot for the success that we have right now. You knew me in university, and when I got to the UK, and we're working in London, and we're working on this business. And Daniela was working full-time on the business because we needed someone to really push and pioneer it. And I was working 2 jobs. I was working the one that was sustaining us and then working on this one. So like similar to you, I'd wake up at 4 a.m. and I'd work till 8, take a train to work, could get home at whatever it was, 7, 8, then work till 10 and just do that every day, just 7 days a week. In fact, I worked so much that I asked, when I took my leave days, I took a leave day every Friday for the whole year. So I had to get special permission to do it because no one's ever done it before.
Yeah.
Just so I can work for 3 days on the weekend, full-time on the business. So I did that for 2 years. And after that, they cancelled as a policy. No one's able to do that anymore because they realized what I was doing.
Yeah.
And I worked so much that everything else took the back seat, and I gained so much weight. I was so unhealthy. We were getting depressed because like you're working, and nothing is happening. Like just because you're working as hard as you possibly can doesn't mean you're going to get success. And Daniela has a really good story that she speaks about how even after 2 years of this graft of giving it everything and like you reaping no benefits and you being ridiculed by people like no one's supportive of everyone wants to hear about your struggle when you're struggling, but no one wants to hear about it when you start succeeding.
Exactly.
And I remember 2 years in, and this was such a low point for us. We get our first like little bit of hope, like a little bit of traction, and then we get an email from the government, from the UK saying, hey, from now on you cannot import this product anymore from this country. Only these 3 countries you can work with, and these 3 countries made this product like unfeasible to sell. Like there's just no return on the investment. And I remember they sent us on Friday at 4 p.m. I'll never forget it because I read it as if it must have been like a lie. And they even CC'd in the 5 competitors that were currently pioneering this industry in the same email. They didn't even have the audacity to send it to us individually. They just kind of CC'd us all in this email. And I look at Daniela and I'm like, I don't know what the hell we're going to do. Like we put so much money into this. We currently had stock coming from that country. Yeah. They're like, that can still come, that can come in, but after this, no more. And you think about like, up until this point, we've spent everything we possibly have in this company. All of us are both showing like bad health signs. I'm still trying to work off the weight that I gained during that phase. And you're now got to start completely fresh. And I remember Daniela and I, we worked that whole weekend. I don't think we slept at all, trying to figure out how we're going to pivot. And even though that was an incredibly difficult time, I think this, you learn so much from that, like that experience, that from that point on, there was just no doubt in my mind that we're not going to succeed anymore. Like I just knew it's going to happen. I don't know how, but there was just no doubt. After we made it here, and then that happens, I just knew. And yeah, since then, once we redirected, it's like the I don't know what it was, but the gates opened. And once we pivoted into this different industry, one we're even more passionate about.
Yeah.
I think maybe and I can't tell you what it is. It might be just the relentless passion we had for this industry that just took off. And like the people the community we were working with, they received it the way we meant it, and it's been fantastic ever since.
That's phenomenal.
But obviously you have a lot of those type of stories. But I think about moments like that a lot, that you kind of forget along the way. Like 100%. Now looking at it in hindsight, you can't. I remember it being quite traumatic, but you don't.
Yeah. What I really love about that is how you said, you read the email and it was essentially, for that moment, it was kind of like the end of the world.
Yeah.
But you viewed it as an opportunity to restart or pivot or take your business a different angle where you would reach new heights. And I guess that's the long and short of it for you.
Yeah.
It is having that adaptability and, no matter what, we are going to achieve our business goals.
Yeah.
And maybe this is what we needed. Maybe there was something we didn't see. Maybe this had to be taken away from us in some way. And that was the government stopping the import of this particular resource so that we could see that, this is actually where our business needs to be.
That's very true. Yeah.
And I love that. That's beautiful. I think that's pretty much a principle of life that I've recently also picked up on, is sometimes an ending isn't really an ending.
Yeah.
It's just a new beginning.
Yeah. And that's how you should see it. It's all in the mindset. The way that you view things in life is very similar to how you've just described this. You take the way that you package it, and you take a scenario that was so devastating, but you can repackage it into something nice. And like, there's an opportunity here. There's how do we make this work? And then especially your link to the fact that, maybe, I think this is the part I didn't even think about until you mentioned now. If it didn't happen, I wouldn't have known about this other industry until it's too late.
Yeah.
Because also a stroke of luck that we got in at the right time.
That's exactly it. Yeah, that's exactly it.
That's quite. I'm gonna have to think about that for a little
bit.
And
I think I don't know. These are the things for me that make the journey fun and entertaining. It is. And I like to say this to people a lot. Last year, this time for me looked so different to this year. And I'm excited at the prospect of where will I be next year, this time, purely because I've allowed myself the ability to adapt and to be open to adaptability. I could be, given the change that's happened in the last year, I could be fishing in Bora Bora for 8 months or wherever. I don't know, but I'm excited to find out.
It doesn't sound bad to me. Jeez, Bora Bora for 8 months?
Maybe Bora Bora, okay. But
My goodness, all right, fair enough, jeez.
Or on a remote island somewhere.
Talk to Mark Zuckerberg. So where are you all right now? Talk to me about your current situation.
I think where I'm at right now is I'm at the start of my next phase. I'm at the bottom of the next mountain. I've reached a certain peak, and now I'm at rock bottom, but not really rock bottom in the negative sense, more in the exciting sense, where a chapter has just closed, but now I couldn't be more excited for what's about to come, because my baseline is now here.
Okay.
And that's not just in the career sense, that's in every sense. I feel slightly wiser. I am more aware of myself from a psychological standpoint. I understand my body and its limitations a lot more. I have progressed my relationship with my family and my friends. And I think, again, when I talk about that new baseline, it is exactly that. I now have a new set of fundamentals, and I'm going to focus on those fundamentals for my next chapter in building that up. And that's where I'm at. It's a new beginning.
Okay.
It's an uncertain time. The story writes itself as it goes, so I can't tell you where I'm going to end up.
So, this version of who you are right now is in a room with the Cam that I met at first year university. You're talking to him. What are you telling him?
You are about to go through a host of experiences that are going to shape you to be the man that I am right now. It is going to be absolutely grueling, but it's not the end of the world.
Okay.
I'm
Thanks a
here
lot.
and I'm happy. Yeah,
Thanks a lot, Cam.
sure.
And we'll leave it there. I think that's